Hi, and welcome back to Storytime with Joe, and to the International Space Station, 250 miles above Earth. Has anybody ever made a promise to you? Has anybody ever made a promise and then broken that promise? Well, today we're going to read a story about a man named Abraham and the incredible promise that God made to him. And God didn't break his promise. So float back on board the International Space Station and get ready to read the story about Abraham. Many of Shem's descendants lived in cities in the rich, fertile plain of Mesopotamia. In one of the cities, called Ur, lived a man named Abraham. Ur was a fine city. There were merchants and scribes and comfortable houses for rich and wealthy citizens like Abraham. The people worshipped the moon goddess at the beautiful temple. One day, God spoke to Abraham. He had something very surprising to say. "Leave Ur," God said, "and set out for a country that I will show you. I will make you great and bless you. I will make you a blessing to all people everywhere." Abraham had to think hard. If he did as God said, he would leave the comfort of city life and have no settled home. He would live in a tent, moving from one source of water to the next. But Abraham trusted God enough to obey him. He and Sarah, his wife, packed up their possessions and got ready to leave Ur. At first, they stayed at Haran, many miles to the north, until Abraham's old father died. Then Abraham, Sarah, and Lot, their nephew, set off on the journey that would last for the rest of Abraham's life. Abraham and Sarah had no children, but there were many servants and herdsmen belonging to Lot, as well as Abraham. There were sheep and goats and donkeys that would carry their baggage. Slowly, they trekked from one well of spring water to the next. Setting up their large black goatskin tents, they were making the way to the country of Canaan, just as God had told Abraham to do. Abraham and Lot journeyed slowly until they reached the land of Canaan. So Abraham did not settle down for long in one place. He moved from one end of the country to the other, looking for water and grassland. He did not forget to stop so that he could take time to praise and thank God for helping and guiding him ever since he left Ur. God blessed Abraham and made him rich, as he had promised to do. He owned a great many sheep and goats, and so did Lot. They had so many animals between them that every bed of green grass that they found was soon nibbled bare. Then they had to move on to find fresh pasture. As soon as they reached a new camping place, their servants and shepherds would rush to get the very first share of the water from the well. There would be shouts and blows as Abraham's herdsmen and Lot's men began to squabble. Both fought to get the best for their master's flock. At last, Abraham spoke to Lot about it. "Families should not argue and fight like this," he said. "We have too many animals for us to stay together. We shall have to split up and go separate ways." Abraham was much older than Lot, and he should have had first choice. But instead, he said, "Lot, have a good look east and west, and choose which way you would like to go. I will go the other way." Lot looked at the lush green plain of the Jordan Valley, and how much better it looked than that dry, scrubby hill country to the west. "I'll go that way," he pointed. Sadly, they said goodbye, and Lot set off with his family and flocks to the Green Valley. When he had left, God spoke to Abraham. "Look around you," he said, "in every direction. All the land that you see, I will give to your descendants forever." So with God's promise to cheer him, Abraham set off in the opposite direction to Lot, thanking and praising God. Lot chose the green plain of Jordan and left his uncle Abraham to wander there through the bare and rocky hills. But in spite of choosing the best for himself, Lot was soon in trouble. He settled in Sodom, one of the cities on the plain. War broke out between the chiefs of nearby cities, and Lot was taken hostage by a chieftain who raided Sodom. Abraham came quickly to the rescue with a strong band of his own men and set Lot free. Abraham would not take payment or reward from the chiefs he had helped. But God talked to Abraham once more, saying, "Don't be afraid, Abraham. I will keep you safe, and I will give you a great reward." Abraham wanted neither riches nor honor. There was only one thing he and Sarah longed for: a child of their own. "What good will riches do me?" he asked bitterly. "I have no son to inherit my wealth. Sarah and I are too old now to have children. When I die, one of my slaves will be my heir." "Come outside your tent," God told him, "and look up into the sky." Abraham went out into the cool evening air. The night was bright with stars. "Can you count those stars?" God asked. "I promise you that you will have as many descendants as there are stars in the sky. I am the God who brought you out of Ur. I will be your God and your children's God forever. I am going to give you and Sarah a son, and I will give you this country for his descendants to live in." Although God's promise sounded impossible, as Abraham stood there in the velvety darkness, he believed with all his heart that God would keep his word. God was glad that Abraham trusted him. He accepted Abraham because he put his whole faith in God. And that's the story of the promise that God made to Abraham. That Abraham, even though he was very old, would have a son, he and Sarah, and that son would go on to have descendants. And there would be so many descendants, they would be like the stars in the sky. So that was a great promise, and God kept that to Abraham, just as God keeps his promise to us. So when you go out into the night skies and look at those stars, remember Abraham, and that God always keeps his promise. All right? So let's sing a song. I know you know this one very well. He's got the whole world. So sing along with me. He's got the whole world in his hand. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got you and me, brothers and sisters, in his hands. Remember that. God loves us, and we are in his hands, and he keeps his promises. See you again at Storytime with Joe. Thanks for being here on board the International Space Station.